Hello, my name is Mallory Hull, and this is my experiment for our final project. My experiment that I chose to do is called the water cycle experiment. This experiment is going to represent how the water cycle works. For this experiment, you're going to need one large transparent bowl so we can actually see through and you'll be able to see the steps of the water cycle. You'll also need a small transparent bowl, just again so we can see through and you can actually see the results of your experiment. The large bowl is going to hold our ocean, and the small one is actually going to represent our land. Next, you're going to need hot water, which is I'll explain how the hot water comes into play instead of cold water to put in for your ocean later on. You're also going to need 3 or more pieces of ice, which I'll explain later what that's going to represent. And then you're going to need a spoon, salt, and cling wrap. So first what you're going to do is you're going to pour in the hot water into the large transparent bowl. Again, this is going to represent your ocean. Again, it's going to vary how much water you're going to put in. You can see how hot this water is. Be careful if kids are doing this experiment with you. You may want to use gloves if they're going to be pouring in the water or need adult help. Then you're going to put in your land, which I may need to pour some of this water out actually because I don't want my land to float. So I'm going to pour out a little bit of this water and we're going to put in our land. It is still floating. Sorry for that. I guess I estimated a little bit too wrong. So you're going to put in your land. And then what you're going to do is you're going to actually, before you put in the land, it's probably smart so the water, this doesn't get into the land. You're going to pour some salt into your ocean because as we know, the ocean is salty. So we want to represent it as much as possible. And you're going to take the spoon and you're going to mix it up until you can't see the salt particles on the bottom anymore. Then you're going to put back in your ocean. And I'm going to show you what it should look like as of right now so we can get a good visual. So like so. Sorry about that. And then what you're going to do is you are going to put the cling wrap on. I'm going to move some of these things out of the way so we have more room. I don't knock anything over. So you're going to take the cling wrap. This is kind of difficult even for me to do. But you're going to take the cling wrap and you're going to put it over here. You do not want any holes or any way that moisture can get out. So you may need to do multiple layers because we don't want any of the moisture to come out because this is how we are going to get our water cycle to show because we need certain steps to happen, as you know, to make the water cycle show. My cling wrap is not working too well, but we will make it work. Okay, next what you're going to do is you're going to put your ice on top of here. So while we're doing this, the cling wrap is going to represent the clouds, and then the ice cubes are going to represent the colder atmosphere. So the reason why we heated up the water is because we want that to be the sun, because the sun, as we know, energizes all these systems that happen and provides heat, which makes certain steps of the water cycle happen. So we're going to have to wait a little bit for this, for the process to go on. It's going to take about, probably about 8 minutes for us to see some of these results happen. So I'm going to tie these off a little bit. So while we're waiting for this, for these steps, I'm going to explain a couple things as we go. So the hydraulic cycle, which is also known as the water cycle, describes different stages that water goes through of the different reservoirs of the hydrosphere. So large bodies of water and surface water play a central role in moderating temperature and controlling climate. So water plays a big role in numerous things, not just the water cycle. The largest reservoir is water. We are the largest reservoir for water is the ocean, which we're trying to represent here. It's kind of a small ocean, but that's what we're representing. So it accounts for about 97.5% of all water on Earth, which is a large number. That only leaves about 2.5% that's not in the ocean. The majority of the water in the water cycle or the hydraulic cycle is saline, so it means it's not fresh, which accounts for why the ocean is so big, because the ocean is salt water, so that's not fresh water. So the movement of water among Earth's reservoir in the hydraulic cycle is powered by the sun, which we represented by heating up the water. And due to this, the heat from the sun causes evaporation. So when the water's sitting there, it's going to evaporate up to form, and the evaporation makes it move from a liquid state into a gaseous state or water vapor. So with this, the water vapor is going to rise up and go into the atmosphere. The change in the atmospheric conditions, so whenever that water hits, it's going to be warmer. So it's going to hit the atmosphere, which we showed here with the cooler, why we added the ice, which makes it cooler. It's going to hit that, and it's going to make some of the water vapor undergo condensation. So condensation is whenever we're changing it from the liquid form back into the gaseous form. The water, or the condensed water, is going to make water droplets in the clouds. Well, due to gravity, as we know, which pulls everything down from the sky, is going to make precipitation. So precipitation can come down in rain or snow, depends on the temperature of the air at that time. And rain that falls will evaporate and may be used by the vegetation, such as plants and trees and such. But eventually it's going to return into it's going to eventually evaporate and from the leaves, as the droplets are going to come off on the leaves. As I mentioned before, the hydraulic cycle interacts with all cycles. The rock cycle, the tectonic cycle, the biochemical cycle. It interacts with all aspects of Earth. So it just shows you how influential this water cycle is. And that's a main reason why I chose this experiment to do, because I find it so fascinating that water, a very simple thing that I think a lot of us take for granted, really empowers most of Earth's processes that we kind of don't really realize on a regular basis. And a big thing with that is that without water, a lot of these cycles wouldn't be able to happen. And something really interesting that I found from this semester was that this water cycle is just a continual, the water that falls eventually is going to go back in the clouds. It's just one big cycle. The water's always there. It's never gone. So even though you may see a puddle on the street that completely evaporated or is completely gone, it's actually in the air and eventually is going to fall back down again in precipitation or be used in different vegetation. So we've been waiting here a little bit. There's a little bit of, I'll bring it over here to show you guys. So the heat of the clouds, as we can see some condensation forming here in the clouds, which is from the evaporation that we talked about. And the colder atmosphere, as you can see with this, the water evaporating from our hot ocean is melting this ice on top. And it's forming the condensation. I don't know if you guys can see with the glare, but there's condensation forming. And we can see some condensation forming here. That actually is condensation technically, but it's also showing how precipitation is forming from this water droplets coming through. So we're going to wait here a couple more minutes and see how this, I'm going to put the camera back, and I'm going to take off the clouds, and we're going to see if some water formed on our land. When you're taking off your clouds, if you choose to do this experiment to represent something, it's really easy for kids, and it's cool because you can actually see it in work instead of like just learning about it and not seeing actual steps that are taking place. So whenever you're taking off your clouds, make sure that you don't let this water fall into your land, the water that was on the cling wrap, like on top from the melted ice, because that'll alter your experiment, the experiment results that you want to find. Because you want to see, this is supposed to show you how precipitation falls from the atmosphere. So there's a little bit, it's kind of hard to see just because of how small of our ocean is. But as you can see here, a lot of the condensation or your precipitation that fell due to the heat and the different atmospheric changes that made the precipitation happen. In here, you can see some of the water rolling around. I'm trying to show you. Not much, but it did represent the hydraulic cycle. I hope you enjoyed this experiment, and it's easy to try at home, even with kids, and it'd be a fun thing to use in your classroom and a great way to show how influential the hydraulic cycle is on all of Earth's processes. Thank you.